Hey guys, today we're going to be doing inverse functions. But first, what even is a function? So a function is kind of like a machine, right? If you feed it in x values, it's going to spit out y values. Now, the inverse function is the opposite. If you feed it in y values, it's going to spit out x values. Now, I did a whole video on functions, so if you're a little bit shaky on that, I think you should watch that video and come back to this one. So just have a good, solid base. Now, another thing you need to know is if you plug a function into its inverse, right, like this, obviously you're going to get the original function, right? The inverses should cancel out and give you back what you started with. All right, so that's kind of how you check. All right, but I'll show you guys what I mean in a couple minutes. But let's go to our first example. Y equals 2x plus 5. Now, the best way to find an inverse of this function is basically you swap the x and y's. All right, so I'm going to swap the x and y. So I'm going to put x and then 2y plus 5. Then I solve for y. So it'd be x minus 5 over 2 equals y. And this is the inverse of the function. So that was pretty easy, right? We got our first inverse function solved for. But now, it's important to understand that not all functions are quote unquote inversible. I don't know if that's a word, but I just drew this graph right here, okay? So, a function does not have an inverse when it is not one-to-one, meaning different inputs produce the same output. So what does that mean? So there's something called, I'm sure you guys heard of the vertical line test. Oops, that is not a line. To check if something is a function. This is a function, right? There's also something called a horizontal line test to check if a function has an inverse. So horizontal line test. This parabola fails the horizontal line test, right? Because it hits it at more than one point. So what does this mean? It's basically telling you that two different x values, right? These are x values, give you the same y value. And if that is true, then that function does not have an inverse. Alright, so now that you guys know that, to test if a function has an inverse, you can just use the horizontal line test. Alright? So now let's move on to our next question. Y equals x minus 4 over 5. Let's find the inverse. Alright, pause the video, obviously. Try to solve it on your own. Now my first step, we're going to swap x and y. So x equals y minus 4 over 5. 5x equals y minus 4. Now this is 5x plus 4 equals y, but not really, right? Y is more like y to the negative 1. Negative 1 stands for inverse, so right over here I should have wrote y to the negative 1. It's not the same. These y's are not the same. This is the inverse. So, uh, oops. This is the inverse function right here. So it's not so hard, right? You're just swapping the x's and y's. Now, let's go on to our next question. Y equals x minus 2, or square root x minus 2, excuse me. So, swap x and y. X equals square root y minus 2. How do I get rid of a square root? Well, I'm just going to square both sides. I get x squared equals y minus 2. X squared plus 2 equals y. And this is y to the negative 1. Sorry. Y equals x squared plus 1. Great. We're going to swap our x and y. So x equals y squared plus 1. So x minus 1 equals y squared. Now, I see a little bit of a problem. Y equals plus or minus x minus 1. Do you guys kind of see the question, right? There's a plus and minus. That means if I put in two x values, I would put in one, let me repeat that. If I put in one x value, I'm going to get a positive version and a negative version. And that means that it doesn't pass the horizontal line test, right? So, if I put in one x value, right? Let's say I put in 2. I'm going to just draw a quick graph. Okay, so let's say I put in some x value, like 2. So if I put in 2, I'm going to get a positive 1 and a negative 1. So that means my two inputs, or my one input, sorry guys, gave me two outputs, which means it's not an inverse. In this case, we'd say no inverse. And you could even graph this, and you'd see x squared plus 1 is like a parabola, and you guys would see that this does not pass the horizontal line test. Alright, so last question. We're going to swap our x and y. X equals 2y plus 1 over 3. 3x equals 2y plus 1. 3x minus 1 equals 2y. And then 3x minus 1 over 2 equals y. And not y, y to the negative 1. I keep saying that, sorry, is the inverse. And that's our answer. So, a lot of this is pretty easy. You just have to be careful about which graphs pass the horizontal line test, or which two inputs give out the same output, because that would mean no inverse. But I hope you guys learned from this video. If you did, please subscribe, hit that like button. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments below. If you have any other videos you guys would want me to make, also put those in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.